The story opens on a bitterly cold night in a remote desert town, a place where the wind howls through narrow streets and the stars shimmer like distant fires above endless stretches of sand and rock. Elena Morales, a young woman of fierce intelligence and quiet strength, trudges through the snow-dusted path, her breath visible in the icy air. She is desperate, fleeing a life that has become unbearable, a marriage arranged against her will, and a family that has turned oppressive. Every step is heavy with fear, yet she refuses to stop, knowing that hesitation could cost her everything. In the shadow of the town, on the outskirts of the settlement, lives Taza Greyhawk, a solitary Apache man known to the townsfolk for his quiet demeanor and formidable presence. Misunderstood and mistrusted by the townspeople, Taza lives on his own terms, guarding not only his land but also the emotional walls he has built over the years. Beneath his stoic exterior, however, lies a deep loneliness, a yearning for connection that no outsider has yet reached. He watches the distant flicker of light from Elena's lantern as she approaches. Curious, yet cautious, when Elena stumbles upon Taza's cabin, shivering and exhausted, she does something that shocks even herself. She pleads for help, not with words of formal request but with desperation laced in a whisper. "Be my husband for just one day," she says, her voice trembling. She explains her situation in rapid, hushed tones. The authorities are searching for her. Her family's plan threatens her life, and only a marriage, even a fabricated one, can provide the protection she needs. The idea is absurd, even dangerous, but she has no other choice. Taza listens silently, his eyes scanning her face for sincerity, for signs of deception. He senses her fear, her urgency, and a part of him stirs an instinct to protect rather than exploit. He does not immediately respond, making her heart pound with anxiety. Finally, with a low, steady voice, he agrees, though not for the reasons Elena expects. He is not motivated by money, status, or obligation. Instead, he sees in her a reflection of his own solitude, a fleeting chance to experience a connection he has long denied himself. He wants nothing from her but honesty and companionship, even if it is only for a single day. The townspeople, already wary of Taza, notice the unusual pairing and whisper behind their hands, spreading rumors and questioning motives. Elena and Taza, bound by a fragile agreement, must navigate the tension of public scrutiny while keeping the truth of their pact hidden. Each step they take together is cautious, deliberate, as if walking a tightrope over a chasm of judgment and suspicion. Despite the cold, there is a subtle warmth beginning to form between them, not yet love, but the tentative stirrings of trust. In this first part, the emotional foundation is laid. Elena's desperation is palpable, while Taza's quiet strength and underlying vulnerability are revealed through his actions and minimal words. Their initial interactions are awkward, marked by tension and uncertainty. Yet there is an undeniable spark of human connection. The stakes are immediate survival, protection, and secrecy, but there is also the promise of something deeper. Two isolated souls reaching across the divide of fear and loneliness. The chapter ends with a sense of anticipation and unease. Elena, having secured Taza's reluctant agreement, wonders if she has made a grave mistake or if this gamble might save her. Taza, meanwhile, watches her retreating figure, pondering the strange twist of fate that brought someone into his life, who might, in a single day, touch the depths of his heart. The cold night presses in around them, but an unspoken warmth begins to glow, a promise of a story that is just beginning. The morning after their cold night agreement, Elena Morales and Taza Greyhawk step into a delicate, fragile arrangement, one that is meant to protect her for just a single day. Though the pact is simple on paper, the reality of living it is far more complex. Elena is acutely aware of every glance from the townsfolk as she and Taza walk side by side. Every whisper and sidelong stare reminds her that they must perform their roles convincingly. The marriage is a mask they must wear, but beneath it, tension simmers. The first hours together are filled with awkwardness. Elena, unaccustomed to Taza's quiet intensity, finds herself tripping over words and actions. Taza, in turn, observes her every move with a watchful calm, noting both her vulnerability and her stubbornness. Their interactions are punctuated by cultural differences and misunderstandings. Elena's hurried urban habits clash with Taza's grounded, deliberate way of life. Yet, for all their differences, moments of genuine care begin to emerge. Taza shields her from prying eyes in the market, offers her food without comment, and, when the cold bites, silently drapes his coat over her shoulders. Despite these gestures, Elena remains suspicious. She expects that every act of kindness has a hidden motive, that Taza's silence may conceal a demand or a trap. She tries to measure and calculate, trying to stay in control of a situation that feels like it is already spiraling beyond her grasp. Taza, however, defies her expectations. He wants nothing from her but honesty. He never asks for payment, nor does he demand allegiance. He only requests that she act with integrity during their arrangement. As the day progresses, the boundaries of their forced proximity begin to blur. They share meals and conversations, small, careful exchanges at first, but gradually more open. Alina learns fragments of Tazza's life, the loss of his family, the prejudice he faces from the townsfolk, and the deep solitude that has shaped his existence. She senses that beneath his quiet exterior lies a man who has endured pain, yet who is capable of gentle, even tender, gestures. This realization is disarming. For someone who planned to leave at the end of the day, she finds herself hesitating, questioning whether her initial goal to escape after a single day still makes sense. Meanwhile, Tazza observes Elena's own vulnerabilities. He notices the tension in her shoulders, the flicker of fear in her eyes when she speaks of her pursuers, and the rare moments when her guard slips. He does not exploit these weaknesses. Instead, he offers small protections, covering her from the cold, ensuring her safety when strangers approach, and silently bearing the brunt of townsfolk's suspicion so she can move freely. Alina, though wary, begins to recognize that Tazza's motives are unlike any she has encountered before. He is not a man who seeks to control or take advantage. He is simply offering companionship, protection, and a fleeting sense of trust. Yet, even as they navigate these moments, the story introduces its first external tension. Elena's past those she fled from casts a shadow over the day. A figure from her life arrives unexpectedly in town, threatening to unravel the fragile arrangement and expose their ruse. This intrusion raises the stakes, forcing both Alina and Tazza to confront the reality that their marriage cannot remain a simple charade if they are to survive the day intact. By the end of Part 2, the emotional groundwork has been firmly laid. The forced proximity has fostered trust, curiosity, and subtle admiration. Alina begins to see Tazza not merely as a protector or a tool for her escape, but as a man of depth and complexity. And Tazza, for his part, allows himself a rare glimpse of connection, experiencing the quiet hope that perhaps this day, intended as nothing more than a temporary arrangement, might awaken something he has long denied himself: the possibility of being loved. The chapter closes on a note of tension and anticipation. Alina, caught between survival and growing attachment, must decide how to respond to both Tazza and the unexpected arrival from her past. Tazza, silently observing, knows that the day will test not only their ability to maintain the facade but also the fragility of their hearts. As the staged marriage continues, Alina Morales and Tazza Greyhawk find themselves spending more time together than either could have anticipated. What began as a pragmatic arrangement designed merely to protect Alina for a single day, it evolves into a series of shared moments that begin to chip away at the walls both have built around themselves. The desert town, still whispering rumors of their union, becomes the backdrop against which their tentative trust and understanding deepen. The day following the arrival of Elena's past adversary is tense. Alina remains vigilant, aware that any misstep could jeopardize her safety. Tazza, however, assumes a quiet, protective role. He anticipates potential threats before she even perceives them, subtly guiding her through dangerous situations without drawing attention. It is in these moments, seemingly small, yet profoundly intimate, that Alina begins to notice the depth of Tazza's character. He is not just a man of few words. He is observant, patient, and quietly compassionate. She starts to see him not as an obstacle or a tool, but as a person with his own fears, hopes, and hidden pains. One evening, forced to take refuge in Tazza's cabin due to an unexpected snowstorm, the intimacy of their situation intensifies. The warmth of the fire contrasts sharply with the cold outside, and the isolation from the outside world creates a fragile space for honesty. Tazza shares glimpses of his past, the loss of his family, the prejudice he faces from townsfolk who misunderstand him, and the loneliness that has defined his life. His words are not delivered with bitterness but with a quiet acceptance, revealing a vulnerability he rarely shows. Alina listens, her defenses slowly softening as she begins to recognize the humanity in the man she once thought was simply her protector. For her part, Alina also reveals pieces of herself, though cautiously she speaks of her fear, the constraints of her past, and the suffocating expectations that drove her to flee. Tazza does not judge or chastise. Instead, he offers understanding through actions as much as words, as steady presence. A hand offered without hesitation, a quiet nod acknowledging her pain. The shared vulnerabilities create subtle cracks in the walls. They have both For the first time, Alina experiences a sense of connection, not based on convenience or obligation, but on genuine mutual recognition. As the day progresses, these cracks deepen. Small gestures, a touch on the shoulder, a glance that lingers, start to convey emotions neither of them has fully named yet. The bond between them grows quietly but unmistakably. Alina finds herself hesitating to leave, questioning whether her plan to depart at the end of the arranged day is truly what she wants. She realizes that Taza's presence, once simply a shield against danger, has become a source of comfort and, unexpectedly, longing. Yet, even amidst growing closeness, tension persists. Both Alina and Taza struggle with the knowledge that their connection is temporary. Taza, in particular, is reluctant to admit his own feelings, fearing disappointment or rejection. He has spent so long alone that allowing someone in, even for a brief moment, feels both exhilarating and frightening. Alina senses this restraint, recognizing that their bond is fragile and that external pressures, her past, societal judgment, and the looming deadline of their arrangement remain formidable barriers. Part 3 closes with a quiet, almost imperceptible turning point. The pretense of their marriage begins to blur with reality, not yet fully love but something more profound than duty or convenience. Both are aware, in the depths of their hearts, that the day meant to be a simple arrangement is shaping into something that could change their lives forever. A soft, lingering moment by the fire, a shared silence filled with unspoken emotions, leaves them both questioning what the next day will bring and whether one day will ever be enough. By the time the fourth part of the story unfolds, the marriage between Alina Morales and Taza Greyhawk has begun to transcend its original purpose. What started as a simple arrangement meant to protect Alina for one day has grown into something far more complicated, an emotional entanglement neither of them anticipated. Forced proximity has slowly eroded the walls of mistrust, and the act of pretending now carries undertones of genuine feeling. The town's scrutiny continues to press in on them. The townsfolk whisper and stare, sometimes openly questioning their motives. The public nature of their arrangement forces Alina and Taza into acts of intimacy they had never planned. Walking side by side, speaking politely in public, sharing meals with neighbors under the pretense of marital normalcy. Each gesture, however minor, begins to stir unexpected feelings. Taza notices how Alina listens when he speaks, how she offers a shy smile when he protects her from rude glances, and how her laughter, so rare and hesitant, is a balm against his long years of isolation. Inside the cabin, away from prying eyes, the emotional stakes are even higher. Simple moments sitting close by the fire, sharing a meal, exchanging stories take on a new significance. Alina catches herself lingering near Taza, noticing the warmth of his presence and the calm steadiness he brings into her chaotic life. Taza, who has long been guarded against the pain of others and his own loneliness, finds himself wanting to stay close, to offer comfort, not out of duty, but because he secretly craves connection. The pretense of marriage is slowly giving way to something deeper, an unspoken recognition that they may be forming a bond neither can ignore. Tension escalates when a small incident in town forces them to act as a fully convincing couple. Perhaps someone attempts to confront Alina, questioning the legitimacy of their union, or a situation arises that threatens to expose her secret. Taza steps forward without hesitation, protecting her fiercely. Alina watches him, her admiration growing, and in that moment, realizes that the man she once considered a protector has become someone she could trust with her life. She also begins to see him as a person with feelings, hopes, and vulnerabilities, someone who, despite his silent exterior, longs to be loved. At the same time, subtle romantic tension emerges. Small gestures, a hand brushing against hers, lingering eye contact, a quiet conversation in the shadow of the cabin begin to convey emotions neither is ready to name. Alina senses Taza's inner struggle. He wants to reach out but fears the potential heartbreak that might follow if she leaves. She, too, feels the magnetic pull of his presence but wrestles with the practical reality that their marriage is only a temporary arrangement. The line between pretense and genuine feeling begins to blur, creating an undercurrent of longing, desire, and vulnerability. Amid this growing closeness, Alina witnesses a rare, tender side of Taza. Perhaps he tends to a small injury she receives, or he shows kindness to an animal in the snow, revealing a gentleness she had not expected from someone so stoic. These moments deepen her understanding and admiration for him. She begins to question whether the one-day arrangement can ever truly end without leaving a void in both their lives. The chapter closes with a quiet, poignant tension. Both Alina and Taza are aware that their emotions are intensifying, yet neither is ready to voice them. The pretense of their arrangement has brought them unexpectedly close, awakening feelings that feel real but remain unspoken. They share a moment alone, perhaps sitting by the fire, listening to the wind howl outside where the unacknowledged truth hangs between them. Pretending has become impossible. Their connection has grown beyond a single day, and the looming deadline casts a bittersweet shadow over the tender bond that has begun to form. The day that Elena Morales and Taza Greyhawk had agreed upon as the end of their arrangement finally arrives. What was meant to be a temporary, pragmatic solution, one-day marriage to protect. Alan now carries the weight of unspoken emotions and fragile attachments. Both are acutely aware that the clock is ticking and the pretense they maintained so carefully is about to dissolve. Yet neither is prepared for the emotional storm that comes with this inevitable ending. From the morning, tension lingers in the air like frost. Elena moves with deliberate care, aware that each action may affect the fragile trust between them. Her thoughts are conflicted. Part of her clings to the security and kindness Taza has provided, while another part knows she cannot ignore the life she left behind. She has grown to rely on him, not just for protection but for companionship, presence that has soothed her fear and loneliness in ways she did not expect. Taza, for his part, wrestles with a complex mix of emotions. Though he never wanted the arrangement for himself, he finds that the bond he has formed with Elena has awakened long-dormant desires, companionship, trust, and perhaps even love. Yet he also fears rejection. He believes Elena will leave once the deal is over, returning to her previous life and obligations. To protect himself from disappointment, he withdraws slightly, retreating behind his familiar stoicism. Elena notices the change immediately. His usual attentive gestures are restrained, and the warmth in his eyes seems clouded with resignation. As the day progresses, both are forced to confront their emotions more directly. Small misunderstandings arise, a hesitation in conversation, a misread glance that amplified the tension between them. Elena, sensing Taza's emotional withdrawal, feels a pang of guilt and confusion. She realizes that she has begun to care deeply for him, more than she had anticipated, and the thought of leaving him fills her with unease. Meanwhile, Taza struggles to mask his disappointment, telling himself that he cannot hope for more than the fleeting day they had agreed upon. A pivotal moment occurs when Elena prepares to depart, perhaps gathering her few belongings or arranging her exit with someone from her past. Taza, recognizing the finality of the situation, steps forward but speaks with careful restraint. "You don't owe me anything," he says softly, his voice steady but tinged with an emotion he cannot fully conceal. In that moment, the emotional truth of their connection, the feelings that had blossomed in the shadows of their temporary arrangement, hangs heavily between them. Elena, heart-aching, understands that she has come to care for him in ways that surpass gratitude or obligation. She is torn between the life she fled and the connection she has unexpectedly found. The story reaches a dark moment as Elena leaves, or, at least, begins to leave. Both characters are left with an emotional void, grappling with the consequences of their choices. Taza returns to his solitude, concealing the depth of his yearning behind a stoic mask, while Elena feels an emptiness she cannot reconcile with the life she intended to reclaim. The day that was meant to be simple and transactional has become an emotional crucible, revealing vulnerabilities, desires, and unspoken truths that neither can ignore. Despite the heartbreak, there is a lingering sense of hope. The bond they formed cannot be entirely erased, and the events of the day have left both of them changed. They now know that their connection, however brief or forced in its inception, has touched something profound within each of them, longing for trust, companionship, and love. Part 5 closes on this bittersweet note, setting the stage for the final resolution, the recognition that one day may have ended. But the hearts involved are far from finished with each other. The final chapter begins with the quiet aftermath of the deal that was never meant to last. Elena Morales has left Taza Greyhawk behind, returning to the life she once fled. Yet the warmth she felt in his presence, the safety and trust that had grown between them, lingers like a shadow she cannot shake. For Taza, the cabin feels emptier than ever. The silence echoes with the absence of Elena's laughter, her questions, and the subtle ways she had softened the edges of his lonely existence. The day of the arrangement is over, but neither of them can deny the emotional bond that has taken root. As Elena navigates her old life, she realizes the truth she had been avoiding. The life she thought she wanted, freedom from danger, independence, and resolution of past obligations, feels hollow without Taza. She recalls the small gestures that revealed his character, the gentle protection, the quiet attentiveness, the way he listened without judgment, and the moments of warmth by the fire when the world seemed to disappear around them. She understands now that Taza never sought the arrangement for gain or obligation. What he wanted all along was far simpler, yet infinitely more profound. Someone to see him, to choose him, and to love him. Meanwhile, Taza struggles with the same realization. His solitude, once a shield against the world, now feels like a prison. The absence of Elena highlights a truth he had long denied: his desire for connection, for companionship, for someone who would look past his quiet exterior and see the man within. He reflects on the day they shared, how her presence had awakened his hope, how her laughter had warmed the cold desert nights, and how her trust had begun to dismantle the defenses he had built over years of isolation. He understands that his longing is not fleeting. It is a deep, enduring need for love and acceptance. The turning point comes when Alina decides she cannot ignore the pull of her heart. She returns to Taza, driven by a mix of urgency, longing, and clarity. The journey back to his cabin is symbolic, a crossing of both physical and emotional distance. When she arrives, the desert wind carries the same chill as before. Yet the air feels different this time, charged with the anticipation of reunion. Taza, seeing her approach, experiences a mixture of relief, hope, and vulnerability he has never allowed himself to feel openly. Their reunion is both tender and raw. Alina confesses the truth. She initially sought him as a shield, but she has come to realize that her heart belongs to him. Taza, in turn, admits that he never wanted the temporary arrangement. He only wanted someone to love him, someone who would see beyond the quiet stoicism to the man beneath. They acknowledged the depth of their feelings, love born not from necessity or obligation, but from shared trust, vulnerability, and mutual respect. The story closes with an emotional resolution that balances hope, intimacy, and fulfillment. Alina and Taza step forward into a new chapter together, not as a staged couple, but as partners who have chosen each other freely. The hardships and misunderstandings of the past day, the walls they had built around their hearts, and the loneliness they endured alone are finally replaced with warmth, trust, and a sense of belonging. The final image is poignant and symbolic. Perhaps they stand together on a desert ridge, the first light of dawn illuminating their faces, a soft breeze carrying the promise of a future forged by choice and love. The closing line encapsulates the emotional arc. "I only asked for one day," she whispered. "Good," he said softly, "because I was hoping for forever." This ending reinforces the central theme. While arrangements and circumstances can bring people together, it is love, understanding, and the courage to open one's heart that transforms a fleeting moment into a lifelong bond. Taza, once a solitary man, finds the connection he yearned for, and Alina discovers a love that transcends fear, obligation, and time. Together, they step forward, not as a temporary union, but as two hearts choosing each other in a world that had once seemed cold and indifferent.